Now to a big story that broke live on our air right here last night. Michael Cohen's lawyer, a former prosecutor, was here exclusively, and he brought receipts, including a new one.
This check was the first check, and it's the check that the president himself said to my client when he visited him in the White House, said that that check would be forthcoming soon. And sure enough, it was.
Here is a picture of that very check, which we obtained during our show last night. $70,000 payment, February 2017. Trump had just become president. And Cohen's lawyers tell us it was signed by Alan Weisselberg and Donald Trump Jr. They also say that while this check was not entered into evidence last week, meaning it's brand new, it is official evidence in the case, and it would seem to corroborate a key claim that Michael Cohen made about Donald Trump under oath.
He says to me something to the effect of, "Don't worry, Michael. Your January and February reimbursement checks are coming." As he promised, I received the first check for the reimbursement of $70,000 not long thereafter.
I'm joined by federal prosecutor Paul Butler, who's previously argued corruption cases. Good evening. Does this check back up that part of Cohen's testimony?
It's proof that Michael Cohen's got papers on Donald Trump. It's necessary corroboration because, as we all know, Michael Cohen is a witness with a lot of baggage. And so he brought a receipt in the form of a $70,000 check, which is documentary evidence that Donald Trump Sr. is in a criminal conspiracy with Don Jr., Alan Weisselberg, and Michael Cohen to violate federal election law.
You mentioned the election law. I mean, that's what's so important here. There's so many things happening people may forget. This payment is already a confessed crime in federal court, which Michael Cohen confessed to. It's part of why he's going to jail. And when you look more widely at what the country thought of, and everyone talks about how divided we are, I thought this was notable. Court of public opinion, not juries, but way more people in this environment believing Cohen than Trump. What do you think of that, Paul?
So two things. One, not only is it a confessed crime already, it's a crime that the Southern District of New York has stated on paper that President Trump committed. In Cohen's sentencing memo, the SDNY said that he acted at the direction of individual way.
Not an indicted co-conspirator the way they wrote it, but directed.
Yes, by President Trump, Michael Cohen was. And the timing here is so significant, as the lawyer pointed out in that great interview that you did yesterday, Ari, when he said that this was after Access Hollywood,
right,
where President Trump was making these payments, then candidate Trump to his alleged mistresses. The last thing he needed was more evidence that he had a woman problem, and so he felt that he had to make these payments as kind of a response to Access Hollywood.
Yeah, and that's where the criminal part goes into an extra legal part. Everyone can redo elections as much as they want, but you have the emerging picture of this election crime, which helped him in a narrow election, of another election crime where Mueller indicted the Russians, whether they had American help or not, and you start to stack how many crimes were committed to try to impact the outcome of the election. At what point does that have a greater significance? The other thing we got into with Mr. Monaco, and he was very careful, as I know you would be if you were representing someone in the Southern District of New York, on this exchange. Take a look.
He doesn't continue to assist the Southern District.
You said other investigations. Is that other authorities in New York?
Yes.
Would that be
yes, it is.
Potentially including the New York Attorney General?
Yes, that's true.
What does it tell you that Cohen's lawyers, in a limited way, are acknowledging that he continues to try to help the feds, who did not deem him a formal cooperator, and the Attorney General of New York, which might be a nice thing, but they don't control his federal prison sentence, and Congress in this public way? Mr. Monaco brought up the actual federal rule that you know about that can reduce his sentence. Do you see any of this as adding up to helping him reduce his jail time, or is that highly unlikely in your view?
You know, he's trying as hard as he can, and it will really be up to the prosecutor, especially the Southern District of New York. Mueller's already given him a lot of credit. Really, what SDNY has said so far is, Mr. Cohen, you haven't really told us anything that we don't already know, so that certainly raises the question. We've been wondering how much evidence Mueller has. It's starting to seem like the Southern District of New York also has a lot of evidence on President Trump. And the other thing about the state investigations is that they're pardon proof. And so this may be in part about Roger Stone and Paul Manafort, people who are in the Don't Be a Snitch club about President Trump. If they're not snitching based on some promise of a pardon, then that can't insulate them from from a state prosecution, because the president can't pardon them for that. So apparently that's one of the questions that Michael Cohen will be answering tomorrow when he goes back to the Hill. Was he promised some kind of pardon? Was that dangled in front of him? It's that, if that's the motive for why Manafort and Stone are acting so shady, so not forthcoming, even though it's not in their own interest in staying out of prison. They need to be cooperating. Why aren't they? If it's about a pardon, then those state prosecutions can get around that, and Michael Cohen might have the goods on that as well.
Fascinating points that you make on the implications of the multiple cases. Prosecutor Paul Butler, thank you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.